Killing Floor's lore is complicated at best, and not exactly consistent either. So much so that before the first version of the mod was ever even released, we had already gone through a fairly bland zombie story, to no story at all, to the first ever release of the mod being the only Killing Floor release ever to have a story mode. So let's start there. London, more so than usual, has been seeing crazed deformed freaks attacking and even eating people. You and your squad, as part of the DRF, the Elite Disaster Response Force, are tasked to secure London. Not having any idea of what is actually going on, the mission was a complete failure. You aren't losing hope. It is already gone. Your whole squad is dead, and they might be the lucky ones. Your best idea for survival is to find others who are still alive. While walking through the streets of West London, you spot a man in the window of a large office building, and the camera pans to a name on the front of the building. Horzine. Going into the office building, you eventually find a projector disc and a projector. To any survivors of the 82nd Division, I have personally come upon critical information regarding the outbreak and the subsequent quarantine. This building belonged to Horzine Corp, a manufacturer and developer of biotech, which had up until recently worked with full government backing in their projects. I have reason to believe that funding was cut from Horzine, but I have found evidence in classified files in this building to suggest that R&D continued at a secondary complex not far from here. I'm taking what is left of my squad to investigate. We will use sewer access tunnels at street level to exit the quarantine. Our mission in the quarantine is finished. Everyone is dead, dying, or worse. This could give me the answers that I was looking for. Following the man into the sewers, you eventually make it through and into the biotics lab, where you find a fucking rocket launcher. You destroy a wall with said rocket launcher and eventually meet Sergeant David Masterson. You certainly outlasted your squad, soldier. I should congratulate you. As you can see, Horzine Corp was responsible for the outbreak in London. It was their ambition to create the perfect soldier, something that couldn't feel pain or fear, that wouldn't question or reason. The city was used as a staging ground, a test of Horzine's accomplishments. But this is all redundant. You've seen firsthand the power of the creatures developed in this very installation. I came here myself because I wanted information. It would seem that Horzine didn't stop with engineering these monsters. They created me. I was their last project before the outbreak. I am, according to the files in this building, a clone. And like any experiment, I was conducted for a purpose. And that would be the elimination of the DRF. Your friends and fellow soldiers. It began with the units I commanded in the quarantine. And it will end with you. So, just like the aforementioned wall, you make him explode. The DRF brings more reinforcements into the quarantine zone and eventually manages to secure it, but they have no clue yet how much more damage will be done. Let's zoom out a little and add some context. As explained by Masterson, Horzine is a biotech company tasked by the British government to make super soldiers. Their funding was cut, but they kept developing more of these creatures with their own motive. The outbreak was clearly deliberate, both as testing grounds, but also to thin out the DRF. But how? Why? One theory is that Kevin Clamley, Horzine's CEO, wanted to bring his son back from the dead via cloning. And while he failed, he still saw them as his children and wanted to replace the entire human race with them. It could also be a group of activists as shown in the short film Uncovered, where they got inside the complex to find dirt on Horzine, but ended up pressing the funny unsecured release all of hell upon the earth button. And lastly, in a later version of the mod, we get a short little cutscene where Horzine scientists inject a flesh pound, one of Horzine's strongest creations, with G-Fuel, which lets it break loose and escape the lab. All of these have issues, but I'll get to that. First, we'll get to the events of Killing Floor 1. As KF1 doesn't have an actual story mode, there really is a lot less to talk about. But we still do get some interesting bits from character and map descriptions, along with some hints from inside the maps themselves. We find out that the Stalker, a Zed capable of going invisible, was being made in the Wire Forest. And Kevin Clamley has done some mutating of his own, as well as cloning himself, turning himself into the game's boss, the Patriarch. And that's mostly it, actually. There are some more tiny bits of lore here and there, but it's just not that interesting. That, along with the fact that it's usually just utter nonsense like green goop turning hillbillies into zombies, makes me want to just focus on the main story for now. While KF1 has no story mode, we do get objective mode. And the map Transit, wrong one, this one, actually seems like a fairly direct continuation of the story. Nothing is organized anymore by this point. No military, no police, just people who have a passion for violence trying to survive and kill as many Zeds as possible. And as a group of these mercenaries, we enter another laboratory. While making your way through, a display turns on with a woman talking to you.
Who's there? Look, I don't know how you got in here, but I'm Kevin Clamley's daughter, Rachel, and I'm on your side. My father fled on the train to Paris when he heard you coming, but he left behind an army of clones. I could use your help sabotaging this place before they get out. When I came to meet him, he was setting an explosive in a station to slow the authorities so he could escape. Maybe you could use it to blow the security doors.
This mission has a lot of little bring this there, bring that here objectives, but I won't bore you with that. We have to blow up the reactor. Classic. And right as we're about to do so, we need to find a way out, because planning is for people who think. Rachel mentions that we could do an eye scan of Kevin's eyeball to get out. Shame he's not here. So, anyway, shotgun, take his slippery, squelching eyeball and do the scan. End of mission, and also actually the end of Killing Floor 1's story. That was pretty short. Weird. Well, I promise you, it's all downhill from here. You see, a few decades later, Horzine, just like a dad who really likes milk, decides they want to take responsibility. And in the only way that corporations can think, they decide that you like money. So how about you put your life on the line for that little bit of dosh? That's right, you are now a Horzine employee. We also learn that Rachel, trying to stop Kevin, has accidentally followed in Dad's footsteps and mutated herself. The worst part? She added robots to my zombie game. Oh, and Kevin is dead. It just says that in the concept art. It's just his clones now. This is explained nowhere and has no effect on the game. When did this happen? Why? How? I don't get it. It's now 2090 something, and Horzine is bad again. But in the meantime, Cordelia Clamley, Kevin's granddaughter, has founded Nightfall, a new group of mercenaries to fight Horzine's creations. I actually think that's kind of it. Horzine needed to be bad again so that they could have new Zeds, but the players still needed an organization to give them weapons. I actually lied to you. The problem with Killing Floor's lore isn't that it is convoluted and retcons itself all the time. It's the fact that it's not even real. You remember when I said that Kevin wanted to bring his son back? I added that because I believed it. Because it is commonly accepted and is on the official Tripwire wiki. So, that's not real. Yeah, he calls the Zeds his children, but that might just be because he created them. That uncovered short film, that claims to be an origin story? The building isn't even remotely correct. Plus, how could the outbreak have been deliberate if it was an accident? Why is Kevin dead? What even happened between the outbreak and Horzine suddenly being our employer while somehow someone is still producing Zeds? Why did they just turn evil again immediately after, and who even is Hans Volter? I didn't even mention him because he seemingly, despite being the first and only boss in KF2's early access, is just not connected to the story in any way. He is some evil Nazi scientist that kept himself alive for like 200 years. Why? Yes, I've heard that him and Kevin, who is dead, are working together. And this could be judging from their voice lines. Unless you're in endless mode where they are suddenly rivals. There are a lot more little things to talk about. But as nothing is even remotely coherent past the mod, I wouldn't be able to make it coherent without just making shit up. So let's make a little bit of shit up, shall we? I believe that it all started with Volter trying to manipulate Kevin. And Kevin wanting his relatives back would make him an easy target to manipulate. The outbreak was probably directly released upon London by Kevin for the reasons that Masterson stated in the mod. After Horzine started getting some pushback from survivors, they decided to shift all of the blame to Kevin so they could get closer to them, either to use their skills to test new inventions, such as more conventional weapons, or maybe the strength of the Zeds. At some point, Horzine decided to show their true colors again, at which point Nightfall was formed. If we ignore half of the story and paste in some of this completely fabricated stuff, it mostly glues everything together into a messy but coherent story. Though of course it still has holes. I think one of the wiki pages on canonicity puts it well. It's up to you. If you don't care what the story is and just want to kill some Zeds, that's fine. If you want to stick to the more believable versions of events, that's fine too. And if you want to believe that DJ Scully killed mutated hillbillies created by toxic runoff from a Horzine factory, while Mr. Foster chased an evil Santa Claus from an evil toy factory to his icy lair and finally to the moon, and a man in a chicken suit charged directly into hell itself, then that's okay too. Anyway, I've researched too much Killing Floor for the past half year, so if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go research a completely different game far too much.